they give the contractor the start work notification, and they make sure that we're managing our subcontractors effectively. They'll handle any modifications and adjustments that have to happen. Every year, if the contract is a multi-year contract, they have to exercise the option, which extends it for another government fiscal year. And then they handle all the task and delivery order contract. We'll talk about more of these in detail, just to give you an overview of what they're doing. They also start right from the get-go thinking about quality assurance. They want to make sure that you don't make the government look bad. And you make the government look bad if you don't perform correctly, if you don't do what's in the statement of work, if you blow through the money really quickly and you're not providing the products and services you said you would. Those are all kind of things. So they're watching you right from the get-go. They're trying to figure out any kind of simplified acquisition remedies. They're documenting your past performance. So every time you win a contract with the government is now obligated to do a past performance write-up on you. And each agency follows their own form. But they'll be assessing your performance and updating that system. So that past performance is what other government agencies are going to look at for you when you go after future contracts. Other things
is that past performance also easily accessible when you're
for you to see your competitors?
No, when they're on the GSA schedule, because I know that's another way to make it a lot more convenient for them to pick. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, is there like a rating?
Yeah, is there a way for you to see past performance of people quickly, like while you're on GSA schedule?
You can't see other vendors.
Right.
Right, but they're able to see our past performance.
The government can see yours, correct.
And you can see yours.
Yeah, right. The GSA schedule, though, GSA has a different way of looking at past performance. What they look at is something called your ORI report, and that's where you list anywhere from 6 to 20 companies that you've done business with in the past, and then an independent group, part of Dun & Bradstreet, sends out a letter, and they do the query on them, and then they turn the report into the government. So that's one way GSA does it, and they also do it when you write up your contract, your past contracts. In addition, they have access to CCARs. The next thing that they're trying to get their hands around is this whole payment and accounting piece. So just like you have to get your cost centers all in line for handling government business, the government's getting their systems in place to handle you, right? So they're trying to figure out if there's any financing that's going on. We'll talk about that later. They look at all your invoices coming in to make sure your costs are allowable, like we talked about earlier. Any kind of price adjustments, any changes on the contract, you're giving them a program manager with 8 years of experience instead of 10. How are they recouping the price adjustment for that? If there's any defective pricing claims where you aren't truthful in the Truth in Negotiations Act, cost and pricing data, they're looking at stuff like that. They're reviewing all your invoices to make sure they're accurate and checking your time cards to see if people have put in the hours they said they did. If they're checking for any kind of fraud and exclusion, any contractor debts that if you owe the government money because maybe they overpaid you for something, they're collecting that money back. So they're all about payment and accounting. They're also looking at administering any special terms and conditions on the contract, resolving any kind of disputes. We talked about terminations this morning in terms of convenience and default, and they're handling closeout. So that's a big picture of what the government's doing. So now I want to talk about this relationship between the contracting officer and the contracting officer representative. And obviously, he mentioned he plays both roles. And so the contracting officer is the one that actually has the warrant and the ultimate responsibility for the contract. They're the only ones that can obligate the government. They're the ones that sign on the dotted line, up to their warrant amount. So if you have a $10,000 warrant, you can only sign contract actions up to $10,000. If you have a contract action that's $20,000, it would have to go to your manager, who would have a higher warrant than you. What they do as a contracting officer is they can't be in all places at all times. So let's say I had a contract, for example, where there was work being done in San Diego, Norfolk, and Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. As a contracting officer, I can't be in all those places to make sure the contractor's done all their work. So I, as a contracting officer, will delegate a portion of my authority to contracting officer representatives. And what those corps, and I would have one in Mechanicsburg, one in San Diego, and one in Norfolk, and they would actually manage your, or they would ensure that you're being compliant with your contract at each of those 3 locations. And any issues that happen, the contracting officer representatives would report back to the contracting officer. It's up to the contracting officer to take action if any action needs to occur. So the contracting officer authority, they're responsible for ensuring performance of all necessary actions for effective contracting. So they're making sure that, so think of them as like the purse holders for our taxpayer dollars. They want to make sure they're holding onto those dollars tightly and that they're only paying out things that legitimately should be paid out. They have the authority to enter into, administer, or terminate contracts and make any related determinations and findings. Contracting officer has to retain the contract and perform all applicable administration functions. So they're the ones that are ultimately responsible. So here's where we get into a problem. Some agencies are really good about this. Some agencies not so much. So the way this is supposed to work is I'm the contracting officer. If I'm going to make any of you corps, I have to send you a delegation letter where I tell you specifically what you have the authority to do. I've taught in agencies where they just don't do that, even though they're required to do that, and that puts that corps at extreme risk because they may think they have abilities that they don't have, that they've not been authorized to do. So the contracting officer has to retain the contract and perform administrative functions with the assistance of other government personnel, those are the corps. They can assign the contract to a contract administration office. So he mentioned he's you're ACO, Administrative Contracting Officer?
I'm an AO. So basically, I'm a CO for the lowest warrant, and then a COR for level 1 COR.
Yeah.
And then
Normally you
an
don't
AO.
have a person that performs both roles like that, but you're special.
I am, and it really is because of the type of job that I do. As an administrative officer, I also do human resource. I'm the budget officer. I'm really the only one that can obligate any funds for our center or sign off on anything. You know what I mean? It's a weird kind of thing, but it's Job Corps. We're kind of weird anyway. They make special rules for us. So a lot of us wear many different hats.
And then they can assign the contract to a CO with specific. So sometimes the contracting officer needs help, like please go off and see, I think there's fraud that's occurring here, and they might assign parts of the contract to other government officials to be able to go investigate those kind of things. The Corps, on the other hand, gets all their authority from the contracting officer. We used to call them contracting officer technical representatives. And depending on the agency you're talking about, some of those people have great technical skills, some not so much. So we're using the term core now. They're designated and authorized in writing by the CO. I always recommend to contractors, once you win a contract, ask the Corps for their delegation letter. They will provide you a copy of it. Then you will know exactly who you should go to for what kinds of issues, so that you go to the right person. The kinds of things they do is they provide technical guidance on the contract. So if you have a question about any of the requirements, you can ask the Corps. They perform inspection to make sure you're doing your job correctly. They do any kind of testing approval, and then any kind of surveillance. So if there's a QASP, Quality Assurance Surveillance Plan, they will be the ones monitoring that QASP. And we talked about a QASP, an example of a QASP being if there's a sign-in sheet in the bathroom that says when the restroom was cleaned, you would have that all listed there. So who do you think can order contractor overtime?
CU.
Or the COR if he's given authority to do it.
Yeah, so the contracting officer representative cannot change any of the terms and conditions on the
Right.
contract. So that's one of the things they can't do under any circumstance. So in this case, who would be ordering it?
CU.
Yeah. Conduct inspection and acceptance.
COR.
typically the COR, right? Conduct contractor surveillance,
COR.
still the COR. Reviews invoices for payment.
CO.
Right. So in that case, that could be delegated to the COR, that the invoices are correct and then submitted up to the CO. Change contractor's work schedule, just the contracting officer. Ensure contractor receives government furnished property,
They make sure they receive that COR.
yeah,
The
COR,
COR or the CO make sure that it's purchased.
exactly. And then change inspection schedule,
COR. Change inspection schedule. Oh, that's a modification to the contract, should be the CO.
yeah. So you see how they split things out? Anything that's an actual change to the contract. So you'll find in many government agencies, one contracting officer manages like 12 or 15 contracts. So you can see they're not going to be involved in all the day-to-day nitnoid stuff that's going on. So as contractors, you're going to be primarily dealing with the COR every day for most of what you need. You'll only deal with the CO if there's a change required to the contract. Or if there's a problem with your performance and the COR is talking to the CO about it. What are some things about a COR? They have to be a government employee. So this is one of those, the government can contract out a lot, but this is an inherently governmental function, so only a government employee can do it. They have to be certified and maintain their certification by OMB. So there's a group called Federal Acquisition Institute and a group called Defense Acquisition University, and they have 3 levels of certification for contracting officers and 3 levels of certification for contracting officer representatives. So the people have to go through the training and the experience requirements to become a CO or a COR at each of those levels, and they have to keep taking courses to maintain that certification. They may not be delegated responsibility to perform a functions assigned to a CAO, so if they're going to do any audit rate adjustments, audit their labor rates or anything like that, they can't be doing any of that. They have no authority to make commitments or changes that affect price, quality, quantity, delivery, or other terms or conditions. So you want to make sure that you never, even though you're working with them on a day-to-day basis and they seem very official, you can't take any contract changes from them. It's got to come from the contracting officer. Must be delegated in writing, and you can furnish a copy to the contractor that specifies the extent and limitations of the authority, the period covered by designation, stating that the authority is not redelegable, which means, okay, so I'm the core on this contract, and I'm going to be out for 2 weeks. I personally can't delegate my responsibilities to somebody else because it's non-delegable. I would have to go to the contracting officer. The contracting officer could issue another letter for another person for this period of time, 2 weeks, or it could be bumped up to my manager. And then stating that the COR may be personally liable for any unauthorized acts. So this is the scary part, right? Because the contracting officer representative has to operate within their letter of delegation. If they do anything beyond that, they can be personally held liable by the government. So that's why those letters are so important. So what do cores have to do? They have to know the contract. So keep in mind, sometimes these cores were involved in the original procurement, and then they just take over the core functionality for the life of the contract. Sometimes they don't know anything about the proposal or the vendors, and they get brought in right at contract award, and now they're supposed to manage this contract as a core. So they have to know what's in the contract. They have to build rapport with the contractor. So this is a one-to-one, or this is a relationship that's going to happen on a daily basis. So they need to establish that relationship. They have to be able to understand the technical requirements well enough that they can go ahead and interpret them for the contractor. So that if the contractor isn't performing exactly up to snuff, they can explain where the contractor's gone wrong and fix them. They can recommend changes, but they can't implement the changes. So the core, because they're doing this on a day-to-day basis, may find a more effective way to do something. They can't automatically recommend it. They can recommend it to the contracting officer, but the contracting officer would be the one to actually change it. They monitor and evaluate performance, review invoices, recommend corrective actions. So your work isn't up to snuff, you need to do this, this, and this to make it compliant. And they might just tell us that informally in our day-to-day interactions. If we choose to ignore them, they can take it up to their contracting officer who can issue a cure notice or a stop payment notice, anything to get your attention that this needs to be fixed. And then they can inspect and accept deliverables. Any questions about what scores or COs do?
Can I add something on to just that corrective action thing? I've ran into it a couple of times. I had a vendor who was doing some construction things for us. I was actually the COR on this one, and did a sloppy job on something, and I think it was something real serious, like a footer or something, and it wasn't even up to code. So anyway, so I called our safety guy. Safety guy said, no, that ain't working. So I put a stop to the work and said, hey, you need to remedy this. And well, that's going to cost another $10,000, $15,000. It's like, no, that's on you. So that's something to remember. If you're doing that kind of stuff, please just do it right the first time, because that extra cost will fall on the vendor to rectify the situation.
If it's part of the contract, correct? Okay. Other things they do is they provide technical understanding of the contractor in terms of administration, inspection and acceptance to make sure we're complying with all our quality systems. Labor relations, they want to make sure that if we have certain labor categories that are fall under the Service Contract Act or Davis-Bacon, these are laws that Department of Labor has put out to make sure that we don't underpay our employees. So for certain job classifications, they'll say the minimum amount you can pay your employees is this amount. So they're checking to verify that your labor rates are above those amounts. Contract modifications, they're the first line of defense when you want to change something on a contract. You talk to them first, and then they take it off the chain. They review our invoices. They make sure we meet contractual obligations. They also do safety and environmental training. If you're in a hazardous situation, they may check for OSHA compliance and things like that. Okay, so why do you think it's important? So I mentioned a whole lot of things that cores do. And the next thing I'm going to tell you is that they need to document their actions and how they document it. Why do you think it would be important to document the actions?
To make sure there's nothing missed when they take it back to the contracting officer.
Yeah, so they want to sort of build the case for a certain action that should be taken. The cores will make or break the government's case if there's litigation. What do I mean by that? These contracts go on, and sometimes something comes up where a contractor may bring a case against a dispute against the government, or the government may bring a dispute against the contractor. In other words, they just can't reach a meeting of the minds. And what will save the government, 9 times out of 10, is the level of detail that the Corps has maintained throughout this contract. Because if they're documenting everything that's going on, the government now has a record of every step that's been taken with this contractor. It's none of this he said, she said, because all of it's been documented at the moment that it's happened, and it becomes the document that the government relies on to be able to help figure out how this case should be resolved equitably. So it's really important that the contracting officer representative document. So what do they have to document? If there's a failure by either the contractor or the government to meet contractual obligations. Are you surprised about the government piece? 2 parties in a contract, right? And so if I'm the government and I'm supposed to provide you government furnished property on day 5 of the contract, and guess what? I haven't bought it yet and you don't get it until day 30, that's a contractual obligation that I, as the government, am not meeting. So CORs have to document that. Any required contract changes, talk about those. Any cost growth under a cost reimbursement contract. So remember I said that at the 75% mark, I have to tell you that I'm at the 75% mark. The Corps is looking at, well, how much work did Mary Ann get done at this point? And did she get 75% of the work done because she's charging me for 75% of the price at this point? Or but you charge me for 75% of the price,